न जानामि शब्दं न जानामि चार्थं न जानामि पद्यं न जानामि गद्यं चिदेका षडास्या हृदि द्योतते मे मुखान्निस्सरन्ते गिरशापि चित्रं मयूराधिरूढं महावाक्यगूढं मनोहरिदेहं महाचित्तगेहं महीदेवदेवं महावेदभावं महादेवबालं भजे लोकपालम्. These are the second and third verse of the Subramanya Bhujangam, composed by Sri Shankaracharya. And I'll explain the meaning of both verses, but do bear with me as I take up the second shlokam first, and then we'll circle back to the first one shortly. In the second shlokam, Adi Shankaracharya says to Lord Subramanya, Mayuradhirudham Mahavakya Gudham. You are the one mounted on a peacock, and you are concealed in the Mahavakyas of the Upanishads. Manohari Deham Mahachittageham. Your body steals hearts, and you reside in great minds. Mahadeva Balam Bhaje Lokapalam. O son of Mahadeva, I worship you who protects the entire world. And I just translated 3 out of 4 lines in the shloka because I want to take a deeper look into the third line, which says Mahideva Devam Mahaveda Bhavam. This line alone can illuminate the meaning of the name Subramanya, which appears in the title of this whole text of Subramanya Bhujangam. And we'll see how. Most of us know that Subramanya is one of the names of Lord Muruga, but what does this name actually mean? To understand this, we must first observe that the name Subramanya is built on the root word Brahma. And Brahma can mean 2 things. First, the most common meaning is Brahma means Parabrahman. But secondly, Brahma can also mean Vedas. For example, when the Upanayinam of a boy is conducted, it is called Brahmopadesham because he is receiving the Upadesham or teaching of the Brahma, which means Vedas. Now, based on these 2 definitions, Subramanya can mean 2 different things. If Brahma means Parabrahman, then Subramanya is he who is the manifestation of the Parabrahman. This is interpretation 1. Second, if we think of Brahma as Vedas, then Brahmanya means path described by the Vedas. Then Subramanya is he who is especially worshipped by the followers of Brahmanya. This is interpretation 2. And this is what is meant by Adi Shankaracharya's words, Mahideva Devam. Mahideva is those who follow Brahmanya, and he is the lord of them. Now, we've seen 2 interpretations of this title, Subramanya. And both these interpretations are just branches of one single underlying meaning, which is also explained by Adi Shankaracharya's words, Mahaveda Bhava. And I'll explain how. We saw that interpretation 1 is manifestation of Parabrahman. If we think about it, such a manifestation of the Parabrahman is essentially what the essence of the Vedas is. And also, interpretation 2 is deity worshipped by followers of Brahmanya. Logically, the followers of Brahmanya must worship the essence of the Vedas. So we see how both the interpretations converge into this one single meaning, which is essence of the Vedas or Mahaveda Bhavam. And this overall meaning is also contained within the title Subramanya. We split it as Su plus Brahmanya, which means the goodness or essence of the Vedic path. So this is how we can perceive the Swarupa of Subramanya Swami. And today I'd like to delve into a composition of Mahan Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar, where he extols the Subramanya in a form as Mahaveda Bhava. And I say so because in many other kritis, Dikshitar focuses on the particular manifestation of a deity in a specific kshetram. But here, he doesn't mention any kshetram, and I believe this is because he wants to convey a larger message about Subramanya in general, which is Subramanya is the essence of the Gayatri mantra, which is the essence of the Vedas. And do remember this point, because throughout the course of this kriti, you will keep seeing references that link Subramanya Swami to the Gayatri mantra and the Vedas. We already saw the first hint when Dikshitar particularly used the title Subramanya in the opening line. And before we get into any further analysis, let's first hear the opening line of this majestic kriti by Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar in Ragam Kamboji and set to Tishra Jati Ekatal. Namaste. Namaste. Shree Subrahmanyaaya Namaste. Namaste. Shree Subrahmanyaaya Namaste. Namaste. Manasija Koti Koti Lavanyaya Dena Sharanyaya Shree Subrahmanyaaya Namaste. Namaste. So, I promised to circle back to that shlokam from the Subramanya Bhujangam that I first sang, and I'd like to explain why I sang that before proceeding into the Kriti. There, Adi Shankaracharya keeps mentioning the words na janami, which means I don't know. He says, I know neither words nor their meanings, I know neither poetry nor prose, but in my heart, I see that one bright form of yours with 6 faces, and that is what is making these words pour forth from my mouth. I presented the shlokam because if this is the state for Mahanyani like Adi Shankaracharya, then you can only imagine the plight of a young student like me. So I want to make it very clear that I have neither the capacity nor the intellect to fully grasp the profound meanings that this Nadopasaka, Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar, has buried in this Kriti. So my humble attempt to explore this piece is entirely guided by Mahaperiyava's exposition of it, as published in the 7th installment of the series titled Devathin Kural, published by the Kanchi Kamakoti Peetham. And I'll only be expressing my understanding of this Mahan's words and adding to it a few other insights from various sources along with my own thoughts. Now coming to the Kriti itself, Dikshitar begins on a very auspicious note using the word Shree, which means wellness and prosperity. And then he immediately invokes Subramanya and conveys his countless namaskarams to him. Here, the word Namaste is a conjunction of the roots Namaha and Te. So Namaste means namaskarams to him. He uses this word twice, and Mahaperiyava says whenever a word is said more than once, it is meant to emphasize that its effect is intended countless times. So here, Dikshitar is expressing his countless namaskarams to Subramanya Swami. And coming to the second line, we hear that the first word is Manasija, which denotes Manmatha. Here, there is a literal and symbolic meaning to this name. Manasija means born from the heart. And in the literal sense, Mahavishnu is said to have given rise to Manmatha from his heart, and hence Manmatha is called Manasija. But in a symbolic sense, Manmatha represents Kama, which means any desire or attraction. And if we think about it, for us humans, any such desire or attraction stems from our heart. And this is what is being subtly shown by the belief that Manmatha is born from the Manas or heart. Now, this Manmatha is said to be ananga or formless. This implies that our desires are also formless like him. They're intangible and only exist within our thoughts, essentially. Yet each of us is so consumed by our desires. These attractions make us believe that nothing can be more attractive than them. And to show that, Manmatha is also irresistibly attractive. He's the embodiment of handsomeness despite being formless. But there is something that puts even Manmatha's beauty to shame. One interpretation of Subramanya's title as Kumara is Kutasita Maraha, which means the one who puts Mara or Manmatha to shame. Why so? Dikshitar says Subramanya's form is infinitely more attractive than Manmatha, Koti Koti Lavanya. Again, he repeats the word koti, which means crore, twice to say that he is infinitely as handsome. In Tamil, Subramanya is popularly called Muruga. We sing Muruganin Marupeyaralagu. In Tamil, the word Murugu itself means vitality and joy, which manifests as youth and handsomeness or Alagu, and he who is the embodiment of such true beauty is called Muruga. And Arunagirinadar goes even one step further, and instead of addressing him as Murugane, he says Murugone, which can be understood as Murugakku Kone, meaning the one who is the king of beauty itself. But how can this be so? If Manmatha is the pinnacle of beauty, how is it that Muruga is infinitely more handsome than even him? This is because Manmatha embodies our Kama, which looks beautiful and tempting to us externally, but deep within, it can push us to unhealthy lengths to achieve our goal. For instance, we say all is fair in love and war. And both of these are just expressions of Kama. And just this saying shows us how low we can stoop just to achieve these desires. And this is why Manmatha is not of ultimate beauty. But on the other hand, what makes Muruga's beauty superior? If Manmatha embodies Kama, what does Muruga embody? Peresami Thuran answers this in a Kritin Saveri for us. He says, Anbe Vadivam Kunda Anbe Vadivam Kunda Aragani Sinandayo Muruga Muruga Indral Urugado Undan Bullam Anbe Vadivam Konda Araga. He says, if care and compassion took a form, that would be the form of Lord Muruga. In Tamil, there is again a saying, Agattin Nadaga Mukattil Theriyum, which means the beauty within reflects as the external beauty. Within our desires, represented by Manmatha, is an incorrect readiness to adopt any unpleasant or unfair means to achieve it. But this is not the case with Muruga. He is beautiful on the outside, but even more beautiful within than externally, because at his core is the sentiment of pure and guileless affection. He is the compassionate Dina Sharanya, which is Dikshitar's next adjective for Subramanya. So Dikshitar first calls Muruga infinitely more beautiful than Manmatha. And immediately after that, he gives the reason why. It is because Subramanya is the refuge of the meek and helpless. He is Dina Sharanya. And this quality is best seen in the life of Arunagirinadar. He was a 15th century Tamil saint who led a scandalous life at first, indulging in all sorts of vice. But when he finally realized this, he was so disgusted with himself that he decided to end his wretched life by jumping off a cliff. Now, logically, the Lord had no reason to shower his blessings on such a man who had led a life of sin. But the nature of Karuna of Subramanya is such that as Arunagirinadar fell from the hilltop, the Lord himself came forth to save him. And this is why Subramanya is also called Kumara, because he has the innocence of a child when it comes to forgiveness. A child doesn't hold grudges for long. And similarly, instead of leaving Arunagirinadar to suffer for his papam, the moment he realized his mistake and became a helpless man with nowhere else to turn, he becomes a Dina. And Subramanya, as Dina Sharanya, forgets all his mistakes and rushes to the aid of his Bhakta. Such is the compassionate heart of Kumara. So we just saw the ocean of meaning that Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar has conveyed in just the Pallavi of this Kriti. He then goes on to describe the many forms that Lord Subramanya is worshipped in, his greatness as a guru, and also in doing this, many more links to the Gayatri Mantram also arise. So to explore all of these, do join me again next Wednesday as we delve into the layers under the text of the Anupallavi in this grand masterpiece of Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.